What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Zero Mile ADV. I'm doing an updated comparison on the Norden 901 versus the KTM 890 Adventure R from a beginner's perspective. If you're new to adventure motorcycling, you can buy one bike. Of the two, which would I buy? So with that, let's get into it. But first, as always, I'm working really hard to make a motorcycle manufacturing a motorcycle apparel company that is CE AA rated slide rating. So if you're like me, you want to come out to your local track, rip around a little bit, go to your local Starbucks, but still look sharp. Maybe ride to church, look good, get on your bike, go rip some dirt. Check us out, zeromileadv.com. I'm wearing our flannel. This is New Mexico BDR tested. I wore it, not necessarily made for BDR, but I wanted to see if it withstand it. It was fantastic. Still looks good. Quality so far has been really, really good. All the good stuff. So if you want to be one of the first edition members, go to zeromileadv.com, download our free BDR checklist. I use that actually to help me pack for the New Mexico BDR. That'll help you get on the list because once our products are actually available, that's who's going to be notified first. So it'll give you first run. There's about 200 products totally available. About 200 slots available for first edition members. There's about 500 people on the list, a little over that now. So that's your best hope. So with that, let's get into it. Okay, I did a video kind of comparing the 890R and the Norden 901 Expedition. And I kind of wanted to do an update now that I have spent, I don't even know how many hours, but about 1,500 miles on a BDR, on the New Mexico BDR. So let's talk about some of the things that I think, if I was new, I'm just going to get this out of the way so you could stop watching this video if you want. If I was new, I would buy the Norden 901 Expedition all day over the KTM 890 Adventure R. Why? So when I first bought this bike, I noticed it was really wide, and in hindsight, it actually, I think I want to do another video on this, but I had a Tiger 900 Rally before this. That bike actually had a phenomenal seat height, really comfortable seat, really easy to reach. If you could figure out a way to just, if I probably put a little bit of money in the suspension, it would have been an awesome bike, but we're not talking about that bike. We're talking about this bike. The seat is actually not a problem. On the KTM 890R, the seat is terrible. Effing terrible. It's great when you're standing up because you're not using it, or when you're off-road because you're shifting around a lot. So I take that back. There are some advantages to the 890R seat. I learned from a Chris Birch trainer, and he was helping me on the BDR.
When you're in that turn, you're looking down into the turn. See what happens to my head?
Oh, it leans in.
I want you to look all the way up through to the next turn.
Okay, so look through the corner.
Yeah, so detect the turn. Okay. Decide what line you're going to take. Okay. Disregard it and look to the next one, just like on a mountain bike. So okay. I'm in this turn here. I detect the turn. I see it. I decide. Now I'm already looking for the next turn.
BDR, about shifting my weight to the outside of the seat, going around these flat gravel corners, keeping my head up, eyes up, throttle up, eyes up, ass out. That's kind of the tips I got, but really, really helped. It made it really, really stable, made it better for me carrying speed. On the 890, it is easier to shift your weight. So out here riding on this bike, because it is a little bit wider, it is harder to shift your weight. However, another thing that his name was JP, just badass dude, like former military special operations guy, just an amazing dude on a adventure bike, like just amazing skills. Anyways, he was helping me, and one thing he told me too is he's like, basically sit, I can't remember, he had a really cool phrase and I'm going to butcher it, but it was basically sit all the time and stand only when you have to. But it was a lot more clever than that. It was a lot cooler. So I tried to sit as much as possible, and sitting, this bike is so much more comfortable. This bike also does appear to sit up a little bit taller. So the controls and everything do feel like they're a little bit more upright and a little less like dirt bikey, mountain bikey, right? So like a little bit less forward lean, a little bit less reach. It kind of feels like the stack height is a little taller, which makes it a little bit more comfortable. Now, I don't have the specific numbers on this, so comment below if I'm completely wrong and the stack height and everything is actually the same. And it could just be visual. So it could just be a visual thing that this bike just appears to be a little bit more upright, which makes it a lot more comfortable, especially like after coming off the BDR and riding out here. I was like, it just gave me a whole new appreciation for this bike and the creature comforts. That's the other thing. Let's get on to the creature comforts. The KTM didn't come with a heated seat or heated grips. There were a couple cold start mornings, especially on the New Mexico BDR, even here the first week of May, or June, June, last week of May, first week of June when we rode it. And those mornings, it might have been night, you know, when it's 40, 45, 50 degrees and it's a little cold before you get the blood flowing, it might have been quite nice to have some creature comforts just to warm you up a little bit before you hit the trail and get your heart rate up and get your body temperature up. This bike comes stock with that stuff, which is also quite nice. Also, as far as creature comforts, there's a massive military plane flying overhead. One thing that is so stupid on the 890 is the gas gauge only shows you a half tank. So it just shows you have more than half a tank, and then it doesn't start to actually decrease until you get below half a tank. So you have no idea, like, you have to use the mileage to be like, okay, I can go roughly 200 miles on this bike, so I should have, you know, maybe 3/4 of a tank, maybe getting close to half a tank. That was stupid. This bike shows you has an actual gas gauge, which is nice. So the gas gauge design on the KTM, I actually thought my gas gauge was broken on the bike I was using, but it wasn't. It's just a stupid KTM design. Okay, let's talk about some other creature comforts. So for me, in riding adventure bikes, the pinnacle for me is riding BDRs. And with BDRs, a lot of time there's going to be a lot of commuting time, especially if you, like in New Mexico or Colorado. Colorado, I started and finished in Grand Junction, kind of created a large Colorado BDRX, basically a big loop. In New Mexico, started and stopped in Albuquerque. So again, kind of did like a large BDRX. And so that means there's a lot of commuting time. Commuting more than 100 miles on the 890R, awful. Like it can do it. It can absolutely do it, but it is just not fun. I think some of the things that made it bad, we already talked about the seat, but this bike, you know, I had another guy who's a badass rider, Chip, that I rode with in Colorado. And when I told him I got this bike, he's like, oh, you're going to want to remove that windshield because you're going to want the shorter one for off-road. Honestly, having ridden with that super short windshield on the 890, it was awful. Now for reference, I'm 5'9", about 190 pounds, 30-inch inseam. And for me, the height of that windshield just created insane amounts of buffeting. Like, thank God I had earplugs. And then on the long sections where I knew we were gonna have a lot of highway, I had my earphones. I actually brought my AirPods, and I put them in like the silencing mode to like try to cut out the wind noise. And it was still so much buffeting for me in my height that I could barely hear the music through my headphones, and I would have to stand up to get into clean air on the highway where it was actually quiet and gave me some relief. So I ended up doing a lot of standing on the highway just to get buffeting relief on that bike. So if you are interested in getting the 890, I would get the little like extension to maybe help just clean up that buffeting air, because it was terrible. At least at my height and weight, etc., it was awful. And even riding this bike, just noticed, like even on the little highway sections to get out here, I noticed right away how much more quiet it was with this windshield, and it's got the little vent. Like Husky does a really good job designing the airflow in this. Number two, the other thing about creature comforts, I think this bike just looks way better is the other thing. As far as motor goes, I did not notice a difference. So between the two bikes, I feel like the motor's the same. I've read some comments that they're like, you know, the motor on the KTM is tuned a little bit rowdier than this one. Honestly, getting on this, having just, being my bike, but having just spent a lot of time on the KTM, getting on this, the motor felt exactly the same. As far as suspension goes, I talked about them both having the WP Explorer suspension. This one, somebody made a comment on my last video, and they talked about how they're like the KTM is valved differently. I didn't really notice too much of a difference, to be honest with you. This one feels just like the 890R, to be honest, as far as like stiffness goes at my weight. Again, 5'9", 190 pounds, a little fat, right? Ate a few too many New Mexican burritos, but I don't really notice a difference. One pro tip. So the reason I couldn't take this bike on the BDR, which is actually also good because I got to spend a lot of time on the 890R, which I've always wanted to do. I had a leaking fork seal on the front, probably from riding too hard out here. However, I found out from some other guys that a lot of times dirt will just get trapped underneath this seal here. So you just pop this cap off, and there's actually a little like fork seal cleaner that will just clean the dust out of there and reseal it, and then there's no problem. So one of the guys on the trip works on a lot of these because they have a lot of KTMs, hence how I was able to ride one. And they said it was a problem all the time, and they were replacing fork seals until they realized just a quick clean, and then it would seal up, and it was totally fine. And it also only seems to be a problem within the first few thousand miles. And so this bike only has 1,000 miles on it. So that would seem to fix it. So pro tip there. The other thing, and one last thing that I really like that Husky did that I think it makes it better than the 890R is this kind of mount up here. So they have this like mount for a GPS mount. I used it on the 890. I was used to follow the tracks. I had a GPS mount on the handlebar, which wasn't bad. But then if you want to carry your phone and charge your phone and be able to access your music, you can't access it. So for me, it is nice to have this mount up here, essentially allowing you to mount your phone or GPS up out of the way, and it comes pre-built in, which is super cool, and I really like that. So with that being said, if I was new and I was looking for an adventure bike that had a lot of off-road prowess, because I wanted to do a lot of off-roading, or if I wanted to do a BDR, as I mentioned in my New Mexico roundup video, I think New Mexico gave me an appreciation for the middleweight bike, and honestly, I may be a middleweight bike guy now. I've always been big bikes. I like big bikes. I think they're awesome. But New Mexico gave me a whole new appreciation for the middleweight bike. So I was looking for a good middleweight bike with good off-road suspension. I would definitely go the Norden 901 Expedition over the 890R all day, especially if you're like me and your goal is to do BDRs. The touring comforts are just so much better on this bike. The KTM is brutal on the long days, where I can sit on this on the highway and be comfortable for a few hours, no problem, not having to stop. And it is just a lot more comfortable, and it is also, it looks way better, right? I don't know, this bike just looks way better. So if you've made it this far, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, tell all your friends. Maybe actually don't, because I'm trying to keep this thing a little bit smaller, I'm trying to build a really cool community around 0 mile ADV. It's hard to do that with a lot of people. So maybe just, watch the video, subscribe if you've been watching, because that helps. Yeah, and until next time, stay safe out there.